We welcome to the bunker Marshall Hamilton, Riders, Stamps, Ticats alum. How you doing, Marsh?
Awesome.
That's good. How was your Sunday?
Well, one of the things that you have a luxury when you're 62 is you have the ability to put things into perspective better than when you're 52 or 42 or 32 or 22. And when you put it into perspective, it was a good football game. It was a really good season for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, surprisingly good season. None of us, well, not very many of us predicted that the Riders would finish first and get all the way to the Western Final. Found some good players, found a good coach. In many, many ways, this was a B-plus season for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So I had a great day. I was right with both of my predictions. I know on In the Huddle, you pushed me at the end to pick somebody, but that was Tuesday. But
you went with the Riders?
I went with the Riders, but what I said is I need to find out how healthy Fajardo is, and if Fajardo's not 100% healthy, then I pick Winnipeg.
You understand we're all in the same boat. We all have to make the picks.
We all have to make our picks. But
right.
I enjoyed watching both of the football games. It was fun atmosphere at Mosaic Stadium. I went with my youngest son, Brooke. It was a great weekend, and I enjoyed watching both of those football games, and I can't wait to watch the Grey Cup.
Were you, was your heart ripped out and stomped on and gashed like most of the Rider Nation, i.e., for at least the 24 hours after the game? Particularly Cody. I see his tweet about how he thinks he let everybody down, and you just want to go hug the guy and go, there's nothing more you could do. And fans were so upset with the crossbar at the end of the game and all that. That was a tough way to lose. Come on. People are comparing that to 13th Man.
Yeah, that was it's nothing like the 13th Man. Nothing.
but it's being compared to.
Well, okay, I can see that. But, when that 13th Man happened, I'll tell you a short story. I'm in Esterhazy watching it at my son's place in the basement of his place. When that happened, the whole room jumped up in the air because they thought the Saskatchewan Roughriders had won the game.
Yeah.
I saw the flag, and I went, oh, no. And I said, wait, guys, wait. And sure enough, there it was. When that ended, my plan was to stay the night in Esterhazy. This is probably 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I didn't say a word for the next 2 hours. I just got up, went out of the house, got in my car, and drove to the city. And my son finally phoned me an hour and a half later and says, Dad, you okay? And I said, I'll be okay. But no, I'm not okay, because my heart was ripped out of my chest when that happened.
Right.
Did I feel that way on Sunday? No, not at all.
Because why? What's the difference?
That game was won. That was a Grey Cup game. Right. This is a game that the Saskatchewan Roughriders had numerous opportunities to put away and didn't. This game was never won. This game was certainly winnable, but this was not. No, I didn't. I was disappointed when I left, but I walked home, went home, had a good night's sleep. I talked to my son all the way home. We visited about all kinds of things. So, no, this was not nearly as devastating as that 13th Man game.
I agree. That game was taken away from the Riders. This game wasn't. They never got to that point. They never won the game. They just couldn't finish. And you kind of knew that you just keep taking a chance, and you're never breaking through. So it doesn't feel that bad as feeling like, hey, you crossed the finish line. And wait a second, the race isn't over yet, or we got to come back? Yeah.
Furthermore, I want to thank some friends of ours in Winnipeg. One, Andrew Pedersen from the Afternoon Ride on TSN 1290, and Bomber PR guy Darren Cameron for answering this question. A guy wrote me on Twitter this morning, and he said, just wondering how the Caleros trade will pan out now that he is starting in the Grey Cup. The deal with Toronto had a clause. Does it continue onward now that he's with Winnipeg? He's talking about the Riders-Argos trade had a conditional clause. And then there was a conditional clause when he got flipped to the Argos a couple of months later. And I said, I don't know the answer to that question. Well, both Andrew and Darren from Winnipeg, Darren is the Bomber PR guy, chiming in and says, if he is re-signed by Winnipeg, Toronto will get a first-round pick. And Andrew Pedersen, who goes by the nickname Hustler, says the same thing. So if that means anything, which means a lot to the Bombers and the Argos and Zach Caleros, and which I think, by the way, would be worth a first-rounder, would it not? A starting quarterback.
Absolutely.
And a first-round pick. There's potential on the pick, and there's a proven guy here, I think. And they'll figure out the quarterback headache in the offseason.
Yeah.
Just get us through Sunday, right? Just win it for us Sunday, let alone get us through.
Well, the money. I mean, my response to the question, which you didn't really ask, is who would you go to if you were Zach Collaros? The money's probably going to be different in Toronto than it is in Winnipeg, but I'd rather play for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers with their roster than to play for the Toronto Argos with their roster.
If you're Zach?
If I'm Zach.
Yes, Marshall, but how old were you when you got married? Were you playing pro football?
Yes.
You were. Well, Zach's wife's from Toronto. Are you familiar with the phrase happy wife, happy life? Have you heard that?
Yes, I have lived it. 36
Right.
years, Michelle. I know she's not listening, but 36 years, yes.
So don't think that wouldn't factor in. As a matter of fact, when Zach signed with the Argos, he said how it feels like home. I'm not to say that he wouldn't go back to Winnipeg, and these are all the things that we'll talk about in the wintertime. But you're the guy, Marshall, that always says, put yourself in his shoes, right? Because sometimes when you actually look at the other guy's perspective, it looks a little different.
Well, if I'm Zach, let's pretend I've never been a wife, but let's pretend I'm Zach's wife for a minute. Do I want my husband to have a successful season or a frustrating season? I want my husband. I mean, yes, I'd like him to be in my hometown, and yeah, I'd like him to be at home more than away. But I want my husband to have a successful season. And the chances of a successful season with, I assume, Mike O'Shea and a pretty good roster in Winnipeg are much higher than they are with this Argo franchise that's really been up and down. And you don't know who your general manager is. You don't know who your coach is. You don't know who your starting quarterback is going to be. You've got, question marks throughout that roster. So, yeah, I don't know her, but if I'm her, I want what's best for my husband, and I think he's better off playing for Winnipeg. I mean, it is a 4 or 5 month season. It's not a lifetime. It's a season, and there is if the money's the same, there's more money in Winnipeg than there is in Toronto because there's the opportunity to make playoffs and have playoff money.
I think you said it best when you started this by saying you've never been a wife.
Was I right there? That's the first
I'm not
time I've been
sure
right
how
today.
many look at it the way you have. I just want my husband to be happy. Well, I'm sure a lot do too.
Well, that's just a husband saying the reverse of what I want my wife
There's
to be
no
happy.
saying that says happy husband, happy life. The saying is happy wife, happy life. Just so you know. Now
Okay.
we've turned this into The View, which was actually my goal right from the start.
It was.
I think all hockey players are bullies. I really do.
Now you fit in. now you fit in.
Do I sound like I'm from Toronto?
Yeah. Couple things, by the way. Pat Hamelick writes in on the Facebook wall, says, could you give us an update on Frenzy? Absolutely. He's going to be on our TV show with us tonight, Marshall. So Frenzy's fine. For those that don't know, he slipped and banged his head in his house 3 weeks ago. He's done 2 TV appearances since, but he didn't come on last week because he was afraid of coming on and making a fool out of himself. And as I said to John, you mean more than normal? And he said, it's not funny, Rod. That's when I knew that something was wrong with him. But then he went to his doctor Friday afternoon and he's fine. I mean, without bumping his head on the... This is the guy that got up in the middle of the night, couldn't find his glasses, and took his cat's medication because he thought it was his own. He hadn't bumped his head then.
Very Winnipegish, right?
Very Winnipegish. So there's a reason they call him John Frenzy. He called me Thursday. He's all in a frenzy.
Yeah, don't worry about whether John's fine, because John's never been fine, but he's always fun.
Define fine.
Yeah. It's very loose definition.
He's coming on the show today, and it's our last show of the year, so I had to get Frenzy on for that. And Clark tells me he's coming on this program this week, too. Dave Spadafora writing in on the Facebook wall, Marshall, regarding coaching letting the Riders down in the West Finals. So as this is Grey Cup week and we will look ahead, it's my first chance to talk to you about play calling in the West Final. What do you think?
Well, it's not Monday morning, but we're playing Monday morning quarterback here, okay? So I will preface by saying that I think Craig Dickinson has had a great year as a coach, and I think he was a huge... if you go back to your poll question about who's the GM of the year, when you start looking at the moves that the various general managers make, I think people overlook the most important one that he made, other than the signing perhaps of Cody Fajardo, which I think was a little bit more luck than skill. But the hiring of Craig Dickinson after Chris Jones sort of left the football team high and dry was masterful. It was a great decision. So I'm a big Craig Dickinson fan. However, I don't know in what order I'll go with these, but the defense, or sorry, the special teams coach has to be talking to the punt returner at the end of the first half and be saying, I don't care what happens, but you're getting that ball out of the end zone because we're not giving up a single point with 24 seconds left on the clock. That's got to be happening. And when I saw the guy kneeling down, I'm going, what the heck is going on here? Like, the player, I mean, especially American players that are playing with Canadian Football League rules, may not understand what the implications of that is. Let's pretend for a minute that they had scored a touchdown on the last minute of the game and tied the game. Without that point, they would have won the game. That point was really, really important, and it was completely unnecessary when you kneel at the 2 yards into the end zone. So that's number one. Number two, when you've got the ball as many times as they had, and I don't know how many times there was, but it was like 8 or 9 or 10 times within the 5-yard line, you got to run the ball. You got to run the ball. And you don't run the ball out of shotgun. You run the ball out of short yardage offense. So, give Winnipeg credit for making the stops that they made, but the play calling in the 10-yard line was atrocious. Now, McAdoo, I've been critical of him in past years, but this year I think McAdoo's had a good year of coaching. But if McAdoo made those calls in goal line situations in the fourth quarter, that was huge mistakes, and I hope they learned from that. I'll stop there.
No, I'm pausing for editing purposes because that is Rod's rant hijacked by Marshall Hamilton today, which, by the way, thank you. I don't want to be on
Marshall's
your ranting.
rant. Okay.
Yeah, Marshall's rant today for Bronco Plumbing and Heating. You got heating problems this winter? Call Bronco Plumbing and Heating. I think it's Regina's oldest plumbing and heating company.
Yeah.
Well, 40 plus years.
Funny you talk about the single point, too, at the end of the half. That might change the way that game ends in terms of play calling, too. I mean, what was there, 2 minutes left when they went in the first time and got denied? You could have kicked a field goal and then came back down, kicked another field goal and forced overtime, and taken the ball out of the situation when you're not confident that you're going to be able to punch it in against that defensive front.
Yeah, you might have had, instead of 3 possessions where they got 1 field goal, they might have had 3 possessions where they had 3 field goals, and the single point makes it a tie football game.
And it's tied. So there's all kinds of things that go into it for sure. But those points matter. They do.
Couple notes before we break here, and then we're going to bring in Ryan Ballantyne, Stampeders podcaster, blogger, and Chief Punk, who's here in the studio. He loves it. From Big Brother Canada, too, by the way. Ryan Ballantyne will be here to talk about Grey Cup week, the Stamps not being in it.
We wheeled in his own chair.
He's got his own chair.
His own armchair. Like, that's new just for him.
See how we treat you? It's nice. From Brady in Saskatoon on the Prairie Mobile text line at 840-8777, 306-840-8777. Brady wants us to know number 18s, because it's show number 118. Dennis Savard, Mike Ricci, Randall Cobb, Peyton Manning, and he says Marco Bellinelli. Who's he play with? Anybody know?
Don't even know.
He Googled that one up. Must be a soccer player.
All right.
And by the way, this background for Grey Cup week looks absolutely amazing. Particularly what's behind you guys with the banners on the wall and Ticats colors and Bombers
jerseys. Yeah,
that's the guys and gals downstairs, right? One of the floors below us.
Oh yeah, they're decorating for us, adding stuff every day. We got the original 16 and Caliber coffee. You got to put the decorations up. We didn't get them all up on day one, but added a couple more there, so we put the lights up.
I think it just looks fantastic
this morning. That's awesome. And I wanted to mention, I thought this was really cool. Number 18s, and Jordan put in, was it Kyle Busch? I'm pretty sure, the NASCAR driver. And did you see Pete's Labardius' video? That's going crazy of his kid, who's got, who's born with autism, and he was standing in front of the television doing the call of Kyle Busch's win, the last couple of laps, and it was pretty cool to see. He's so excited, and NBC picked up the video and they actually put it all over their channels, and it's kind of going viral, which is really cool for him because I know Pete really well, and he doesn't get to see his son a lot. He's in Edmonton, and he's the son's in Edmonton. He's in Calgary, and he lives most of the year out of Mississauga. But he's like, maybe the apple doesn't fall as far away from the tree as I thought. So it was a cool moment. If you haven't seen it, you can check it out on Twitter.
Totally cool. Prairie Mobile, they are your SaskTel authorized dealer. Tell them I sent you.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.